Hello, hello. Oh my goodness, audience. We are about to share in a beautiful conversation with this young lady who she's a little older than you. If you're seeing this, not just hearing it, trust me, she doesn't look old enough to have done as much as she has done today. And the Coleen Greco, I'm going to pronounce that properly, is here with us. She is a mindset and nutrition coach. She works primarily with women that have kind of lost themselves at some point. You know, you've shared so much and you've worn so many hats. I'm speaking to you in the audience. And this can be men as well. So, you men that are listening, whether you relate to this individually or you know loved ones that you think, oh my gosh, I see this happen so often. This conversation is of such value. I feel so privileged to be a part of it. Thank you for being here, Coleen, and introduce yourself. Actually, do it properly. I don't think I could ever do that justice.
I think you did a beautiful job, Carol. Thank you so much. But hello, everyone. My name is Coleen Greco, and I'm a joyologist. You can see the word right behind my head there. Joy is at the center of everything I do because I generally say to people, if not for joy, why are we doing any of this? Right? We want to center ourselves in joy, and joy is that inner knowing that I'm sure I'll get into at some point. But by way of introduction, I go by Joyologist. And I really help women that, they feel like they're stuck. They feel like they are not good enough. They are less than. You referred to earlier that they wear many hats. We have so many labels, as I like to say. I am wife, mother, sister, aunt, entrepreneur, friend. I have all the labels. But I forgot at some point, and we'll get into my story in a bit, but I forgot at some point that I still get to be Coleen at the end of the day. And I am 10-year-old Coleen, I'm 35-year-old Coleen, and I will reveal I am 49-year-old Coleen. I am all the Coleens, right? And they all get to get celebrated every single day, and they get to come with me as part of these labels. And it's about bringing that back out to the forefront and reminding you who you are and grounding everything that you do in joy and making you feel amazing all along the way.
Incredible. If not for joy. In our conversation the other day, I loved it. You said something to me, and I've already shared it before this conversation, actually. Trouble is your transportation.
Ooh,
Uh,
yes.
that's nice, Colleen. So share about a little, if you will, your story.
Hmm.
This trouble is your transportation line and accountability to ourselves.
Absolutely. So I always try to preface the story by saying this could be a trigger alert for someone. So I just like to kind of allow people that moment to kind of catch their breath. But when my son was 10, my younger son, he attempted suicide here in our house, and we were actually home. So for those that think, how could that possibly happen? I mean, it could happen right now. We were home. He was home. It just happened. And as you might imagine, I didn't handle it well. I ate and drank a lot in the beginning. I made over 150 phone calls to doctors and therapists saying, like, what do we do? We had the emergency services people out here to evaluate him and make sure that he was safe. And they basically gave me a phone book and said, like, start dialing. I was like, how do I really? Like, that's the support? Really? And so that's what I did. I started dialing and I did not receive one phone call back.
Wow.
And so it was very evident to me from a very early on that if he was going to heal, it was going to be because of what we did here inside the house. And I had a friend who sent me a book. And as you can imagine, I'm not thinking clearly most of the time at this point. And for some reason, I just started reading it and really got into it. And it was this book, Blessed in the Darkness. I had no idea what it was about. I had no idea who the author was, and I didn't even care. And I'm reading it, and there's this phrase, trouble is your transportation. And it just hit me between the eyes. And I realized at that moment that as long as I just hold on, that death grip, hold on, like there's a freight train and you're attached to the back and you're flying. As long as I hold on, this is going to bring myself and my family to a much more beautiful, better existence than what we have now. This is part of our story, and that everything is going to be okay. And in the early days, again, this is all sort of happening around the same time. I was contemplating my own suicide, and I talk a lot about that in my practice, that, you feel like a failure as a mother. Like, how could I let that happen? How is this possible? How didn't I see it? What could I have done differently? All the questions. And said, at that moment, it's got to be joy. Joy is going to be the thing that gets us through. That's sort of like the tactical approach, but that love was truly the answer to everything. And so, sure, we don't have the professional help, but we have love, and that is powerful. And love is how we healed him. And we said, we are just going to love him until we can't love him anymore. And then we're going to dig deeper and kind of find it in that hidden pocket in our body and love him even more. And that is how he healed. And it was an entire year where we didn't have a single play date. Again, he was 10, right? So play dates are a really big thing. And it was love that got all of us through. And, I'm so proud to say now he is looking at colleges. He's made the National Honor Society. He has a great group of friends. I think he just got back from the beach completely sunburned. I don't even care. Like, that's a good problem to have.
Right.
I'm just happy he's here.
Wow. I cannot, there's no way that I can even imagine. And for anyone in the audience that can, wow, is all I can say. And whether there is an opportunity to love someone through that, or in another scenario, there is not that opportunity to love them here on this planet, you're all honored and lifted and thought about and loved from afar, from a stranger in your sphere
Yes.
somewhere. So thank you so much for sharing that. And so this trouble moving, and I look forward to a conversation about that and having you have a conversation and go deeper into that part of the story. But on this side of that story, and one of the beautiful outcomes that you chose is you chose accountability, and you decided not to eat and drink your way through your survival
Yes.
of all of this, correct? And that came with, I mean, clearly it had to be a choice. And how did you get there?
Well, realizing we were on our own, and again, living in Boston, that's really hard to imagine, but we were on our own, and we, initially put on quite a bit of weight. And I realized if I'm going to be a role model for him and help him heal, I have to handle myself differently. And I have to put myself on that pedestal that I expect him to put himself on. And I expect all of you out there to put yourselves on. I have to walk the walk. And so I sought the help of a nutrition coach, and he did help me lose. I lost 52 pounds in total.
Wow.
It's a rapid weight gain. uh,
Sure.
and and when I asked him to help me develop strategies so that I would not have to do this ever, ever, ever again,
Yes.
he said he wasn't my therapist. And I thought, well, that's a terrible response, first of all. But secondly, that gives me an idea. Because if you don't understand the deep-seated connection between mindset and nutrition, then you have completely missed the boat. It's all about mindset. Mindset is what drives everything. Mindset drives what I'm saying right now, what I'm going to do 5 minutes from now, what I did an hour ago. It's all mindset. It's all about choice, to your point earlier. And so I decided, as I was, trying to develop these strategies for myself, there's a whole community of women that don't have access to this level of support that I wish I had. I mean, what a difference that would have made in my healing. And so I left my corporate career. I was in corporate IT marketing for 26 years. I was in leadership. I was doing just fine. I did not need to start my own business.
Right,
But
right.
I felt it was my calling. I felt like I have to do this to show women that there is another way. You don't need to stay stuck. You don't need to be miserable. You don't need to allow your trauma to define you, negatively anyway. It can define you positively. And there is a way to make that shift and remove all those limiting beliefs that have kept you weighed down for, in many cases, decades.
Well, I'll tell you what, your story takes the conversation of limiting beliefs of mindset,
Yeah.
the overarching, mindset to a different level. And I think it is one of the reasons it is so powerful, because from someone who can't imagine, again, um, I all I can think to myself is she has chosen, made a decision to, and I wrote it down, to handle herself differently in order to be an example. And
Yes.
regardless of our stories, where we're coming from, our age, if we have children, don't have children, have had this amazing trauma, as the, transportation, as shared from that book, really and truly, isn't that what it is? If we want to walk the talk. So, how do you, Coleen, say to someone who cannot relate to that big of a moment?
Mhm.
Certainly, everyone, and not that I believe in comparison in moments, but that is a moment that people will say, oh my God, well, that's too much
Dramatic.
for anybody,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But how do you say to someone who hasn't had a trauma that they even allow themselves to call trauma? The loss of oneself is traumatic.
Yes.
I, I,
Absolutely.
I don't think that women, we as a whole, I'll do the 80-20 rule, at least 80% of us allow ourselves the permission to call that trauma, that we've just lost ourselves while doing all these other roles. How do you share with them, okay, now wait a minute. This is what you need to look at. These are the questions you need to ask, and this is the step you need to take. How do you nurture accountability?
I think that's a great question. I have like 50 different answers. Okay. I'll
No, I'm
I'll
sorry.
take the
I have so
simple
many
one.
questions. I have so
It's
many
just
questions.
like I can go all day with this. That's why I get excited. I could take a simple one first. So your energy can only go in one direction at a time. So I love to use the example of walking my dogs in the winter because I deeply dislike the winter. It's freezing. It's in my neck. It's like I can't get rid of it. It's awful. So I go to walk my dogs in the middle of winter and it's like snowing and it's not even 20 degrees outside and I am just miserable. Well, I can choose to point my energy in that direction, or I can choose to tap into my dogs who are frolicking and chasing after little snowballs. And I can listen to the birds because it's so quiet in the winter. Like, which one gets my attention? Right. So that's a really simple way of how to shift your mindset. Like both scenarios are actually true and happening at the same time, but one gets my attention. So I
Yes.
prefer to tap into my dogs and their silliness, right?
Joy.
Joy. Joy in the smallest of moments. So that's
Yes.
kind of a very simple example. But one of the things I was just coaching somebody on this today, where she said, my daughter's just not doing well. And I'm like, do you understand why she's not doing well? And she said, I just can't figure it out. And I said, because you're not doing well. We are all mirrors for each other. And as you start to think about, and you hear people say all the time, if you look hard enough, you'll find it, right? When you think like you're not good enough, you get all the examples of why you're not, right? It's the same in her scenario where she feels like her daughter isn't doing well and her daughter sees she's not doing well, and they are mirrors for each other and they are reflecting off of each other. And I said in a much more eloquent way, if you could just mind your own business and love her and not worry about, like, don't name it. Don't say she's not doing well. Just say she's figuring it out or whatever it is you in your language feel like fits. But understand you're not doing well and you're bringing her down. She looks to you, whether she realizes it or not, as a role model. And you two are modeling each other. And it's just this reflective energy back and forth. And until you put yourself back up on that pedestal, she's going to continue to decline. And it's happened with my other son, where he was having a struggle and I started to decline. And I was like, uh-oh. And I realized it really quickly, and I changed my verbiage and my the way I interacted with him and everything. And sure enough, he started going up. I started going up. Like everybody was happier. And I realize it sounds a little too simplistic, but this is literally how it works. And when you realize you are the architect of your own misery,
Ah,
and that's a hard pill to swallow. That's a big old horse pill, but it is true. And
it's true.
once you realize that and you just make that tiny little pivot, and it's a series of tiny little pivots, before you know it, it's an entirely different existence that you didn't even know was possible.
Incredible. You and I spoke about this a little differently yesterday, and you said the word rebound.
Mm-hmm.
And it immediately took me to basketball,
Yep.
thinking about think about how incredible rebounding is.
Yes.
And it's not like you rebound and you're not going to have to rebound again. Like you're saying today, pivot, whether you call it rebounding or pivot, it's the practice of and becoming aware more quickly. One of the things I love that you had shared, and I thought it was so beautiful of you to point out, and I know that that means so much to those that you work with, is you realize you can be the number one expert. You're still having to practice.
Oh, yeah. I will be, me and every other human on the planet will be
Yes.
doing this work until we die. That is part of the gift. Now, as you remove all of these limiting beliefs, then you're just kind of left with some of the annoying ones. It isn't like it's this gut-wrenching work all the time, but you're still going to have them. And as you up level yourself, sometimes some of the old ones come back in, but you're at a higher level. So it's at a higher level. So it looks a little bit different. But you're right, when I said the victory is in the rebound, that is sharing with those that, are in the work thinking, well, once I do this work, I'm just going to be done.
Oh,
No, you'll still fall, but you won't stay in this like 2 year long depression where you can't function or in a horrible relationship for way longer than you should. Your response time improves. So what would have kept you down for 2 years then goes to like 6 months, then goes to 2 weeks, then goes to 5 minutes. Like I said about my older son, I was like, what is going on? What is this? And the truth is you're human. And so you just get distracted and you don't stop to kind of look at it. When I stopped to look at it, I realized, oh boy, mirror. Okay, let's look at that. And I did. And it was a quick little pivot. And then, before you know it, it's a couple of days, maybe his behavior starts to change,
yes.
mine changes, our engagement starts to change, everything changes. But it's kind of being present and being in the work and willing to look at yourself as I don't have a better word for this right now, but you're the problem, but you're also the solution.
Mm-hmm.
And
And
that is so empowering. I get to
it is.
choose.
It's empowering. And I do think that, and I'm probably guilty of this, probably, I'm sure I am, of all the things, although I'm 110, the thing about that is, I mean, you have a lot of time to make a lot more mistakes. But the situation is, it's the practice of the surrender of what shows up every day.
Yes.
And I love that you said, because it's the truth, what we focus on is going to grow.
Mm-hmm.
It just is.
Yes.
It's interesting. I was actually praying with someone, and I said, now, you might not have the right person to pray with. And she said, why? And I said, because we're only going to pray about what we want.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to say, oh, please don't let all these things happen. We're going to say, please. And whatever happens in there, you know, pray for a better mindset. I mean, whatever we focus on, we're going to give that energy.
Mm-hmm.
And the other gem that you shared, and I have told my precious kiddos this before with their little ones, those little ones are going to react to anything that happens exactly like they do.
Mm-hmm.
And also told them when they need therapy, I didn't know that when they were tiny. So it's all good. But I love your practice. I love that you focus on the joy. I do think that your example is it's a very, very, very deep, amazing example of courage and faith, and that led to joy. It's amazing.
Thank you. It's I wouldn't change it for the world. I might have at the time, but now, I mean, it's made us who we are. And that's the thing too. I really want people to take away when you do this work and the clearer you get and the more clearing you do, your body speaks to you and you start to notice. When I'm out of alignment now, my cheeks will start to burn. They get
Oh,
like kind of achy, almost like I'd been laughing too hard.
wow.
I'm like, something's going on. Time to pay attention. And it's really quite amazing. But I've done a lot of the work to clear it. And so now it's sort of like, wonder what that's about.
Well, this is incredible. Oh, and I know, please, if you would share with the audience, you've made a very generous offer for them to connect and to learn more with and about you. So, what's that all about?
Yeah, absolutely. I have a free ebook called 4 Steps to Removing Limiting Beliefs. And these are the 4 steps that I developed. Remember back in the story, my nutrition coach told me he wasn't my therapist. So I was on my own to figure this out. And I still use this to this day. It's been a little over 6 years and I am still practicing it. And again, the better you get, the more work you do, the faster you're clearing, the faster the rebound, but I'll use it until the day I die. It's effective, and I've worked with over 400 women to do just this, and they're all part of the self-love club now.
Oh my gosh, that is such a gift. Your story is a gift, so important. And I know the audience appreciates you so much and will just spread the word and the good news um, and the opportunity to, you know, to really make a difference in their lives and starting with mindset. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
And
Carol.
I look so forward to our next conversation.
Same here. This has been great. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so very much.